Hello, my name is Dianna Hardy and I've just written Cry of the Wolf. You can see that there, Cry of the Wolf. That is book 2 in the Eye of the Storm series, and this one is book 1 here. This is a series about werewolves and romance. And I am guest posting on Bookaholics Book Club, which is what this video is. It's a guest post in video format. I asked Ninfa from Bookaholics, what would you like me to talk about? Which is always a little bit dangerous because Ninfa is going to come back to me and always suggest something very challenging that I'm going to have to think a lot about. And she did, and I did have to think a lot. She asked me to talk about writing book 2 of a series, and that's not just the Eye of the Storm series, but also book 2 of the Witching Pen series. This is actually the omnibus. This is the Witching Pen omnibus, and this is book 2, single volume format, The Sands of Time. Now, she asked me to talk about this because, in her words, book 2 is always a turning point for you when you're writing. And I had to think hard about what she might mean about that. And I think what she means is that in book 2 you'll find that the plot kind of goes not where you expect it to go. The book is darker, it's grittier, and new characters are usually introduced. And by the end of book 2 you're in a place that is completely different to where you thought you would be by the end of book 1. So I think that's what she wanted me to talk about. Now I'm hoping this isn't too boring for you, because the answer is a little bit boring. From my perspective, when I'm writing them, I don't really think about that there's going to be a turning point in book 2 as such. When I'm writing book 1, by the end of book 1 I pretty much know how I want book 2 to play out, and I'm not specifically thinking it must have a turning point, or it must have a huge plot twist or anything, although you know, sometimes that's there. I'm literally just thinking about where to take the characters and where to take the plot. The fact that the books are a little bit more dark and a little bit more gritty is, I think it was always going to be like that. That's again, I've always had it in my mind to write it that way. And usually the way that I write, I think I introduced maybe the slightly lighter characters in book 1, and then book 2 you get a bit more depth, perhaps, with the darker characters. I don't think it's necessarily a book 2 thing. I think that there was, in book 3 of the Witching Pen series, let me find it, it's here, The Demon Bride, there was a pretty hefty plot twist in that, and I think perhaps book 3 did get darker than the other books were. In the Eye of the Storm series, we're going to have more than 3 books. I think we're going to have perhaps 4 or 5, possibly more. Let's just see where it goes. I know how I want it to end, I just don't know how I'm going to get there. So we'll see how many books that takes. So with regards to writing book 2 itself, I have a beginning, I have an end for it. Sometimes I have 3 endings and I don't exactly know which way it's going to play out, and I literally let the characters guide me as I'm writing it. But I do definitely have an ending. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3. So you know, I know there's 1 of 3 ways it's going to end. With book 2, with Cry of the Wolf, which is the one I've just written now, I knew that I was going to be writing about Lawrence's history. I knew that was going to come to the forefront. I knew that I was going to be writing more about Lydia and her 3 mates, and how that evolves as a relationship, not just physically but emotionally as well, and how all 4 of them deal with that. I knew I was going to be writing about Taylor, and also the 2 new characters that we meet at the end of book 1, Emil and Sarah. And what I do like to do with book 2, I mean, I like to do it with sort of all the books really, but I suppose it's more prominent in the second books because the story can take off, is I like to put parallels in the stories. So what you're going to see, what you might see, is literally, you know, the parallels between different characters that mirror each other. So what you might find is that one character who is completely not connected to another character in the book, but they're going through very similar things or the same things. They mirror each other, and that mirroring tells you about their history, just in the actions that they take, in what happens and how they feel about it. And the parallels literally come together, and then at the very end of the book they mesh. And that I guess is a pattern. It is an intentional pattern, but I try not to be too rigid about it. So when I'm writing it, if the characters suddenly, if it's not flowing, you say, in the characters are suddenly, I don't know if I want to go there, and they start rebelling, then I have to listen to that and think, okay, well, this isn't working, so I'm going to have to try and write this a different way. Let's go with ending number 3. So I guess that's your answer. I suppose there is a turning point in book 2, but I didn't specifically mean there. I didn't mean it to be like a big thing. Yes, the books I suppose are darker, but not because it's book 2, but because the story can really take off after book 1. And I think that's the case with both the series. After book 1, the story can take off, and that's why you have a darker book with book 2. With regards to turning points, I'd like to put turning points in all my books, really. In The Witching Pen there was a turning point, which was to do with Carl and what happened to him. In The Sands of Time, there is the big twist. And with the Eye of the Storm series, the turning point in book 1 is what happens at the warehouse. And in book 2, I'm not going to talk about because I don't, be surprised. So yeah, there you go. I hope that wasn't too boring. The answer isn't anything, revealing. It's not a revelation. It's just, I guess, the way I write. But thank you for enjoying it, and I'm glad that you do. And I hope I keep surprising you.